Hello and welcome back to Sunday Vibes, where we answer your questions on European football and any questions from around the football world. As you can see, it's a new look lineup today. Joe Tomlinson is in Milan with Zach on a romantic getaway. And Chris Hamill is in Glasgow preparing to watch his side Celtic get thrashed by RB Leipzig. So joining me today is McCubbin and, as usual, Patrick van der Straten. And we start with @NotDavid1's question. And he has asked, which player does each top 6 team need to buy in January? So it's a biggie. And we're going to start at the bottom of the current top 6. And we're going to start with Man United. McCubbin, fresh off the back of that win at Juventus, you must be in a good mood. But what are you thinking long-term about United's squad?
I mean, clearly defence is an issue. And I think, clearly we probably need to invest in another centre-back. I'm a little bit of an optimist sometimes, and probably a bit too much. I still feel like Bailly and Lindelof can work as our centre-back pairing, but in the current circumstance, it doesn't seem to be. That doesn't seem to be what's going on. Obviously, at the moment, it's Lindelof and Smalling seem to be preferred, and they're doing all right for the moment. But these partnerships haven't seemed to have lasted long under Jose Mourinho. He likes to swap them around, and just seems, defensive inconsistency seems to be the running theme of the last 12 months at least. Another centre back would be good. I think someone like Skriniar from Inter, someone like Koulibaly from Napoli, although he is a little bit older.
Probably a bit pricey as well.
Yeah, very pricey for sure.
Skriniar, I think, is probably worth the money for you. You've got infinite money. He's going to cost, what, 70? How old is he, 24? 24?
Yeah, he's pretty
big guy, he's pretty quick, good tackle and interception numbers, great passer.
Reads the game exceptionally well.
You could argue that moving from Inter's defence, I mean, he gets a lot more protection there, but he's still pretty active, and moving from Inter's defence to a Jose Mourinho side, in theory, shouldn't be like that crazy a difference. All round, he seems like, I don't know, unless you think that you can poach talent off the top side, Joe's talked about getting Andreas Christensen off Chelsea.
Unless you think that's actually a good shout.
Unless you think you can poach someone like that, I kind of feel like this is the way to go. Unless you go and like you just say to, you go to Dortmund and you're like, we're going to pay you an obscene amount for a Kanji, or you go to, is it Stuttgart, and you can say, you know what, like Pavard, he sounds like he's going to Bayern, but we will give you £60 million today. And he immediately comes into your team. Like, that wouldn't be the worst idea.
Yeah, it's fair. I've not really seen Pavard play at centre-back an awful lot, though. I haven't really watched him at Stuttgart.
Who would you want to... So, at the moment, it's Lindelof and Smalling.
Yeah.
Who would you want to pair... Say we get someone like Skriniar, Koulibaly through the door. Who is the other pair? Who is the other...
The other player? What, at United?
Yeah.
On current form, it has to be Lindelof, I think. I mean, I think Bailly is a more talented defender, but Lindelof is in better form. Obviously, Bailly's had his injury struggles, but even before that, he wasn't
bullying him.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he wasn't having a great start to the season. I'd say on current form Lindelof, but it would be between those two. I think, Smalling and Jones's days at United are probably numbered after this season.
And what about your fullbacks? You're happy with Luke Shaw?
So I'm really happy with Luke Shaw. I think he's been one of our best players this season. Been pretty solid in most games. I think he's obviously susceptible to a bad game, but like he's been one of our more consistent performers. Defensively, he's improved a lot. Just seems to be a lot more disciplined these days and looks fitter, which is great. I think right back is the issue, really. Valencia.
Do you know why you didn't strengthen there in the summer?
It's got such a knock on. Well, you did. Well, if Delot had been, it would have been
with a more experienced option.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. I think
paid quite a bit for Delot.
We did. We paid about 20 mil for Delot, and Mourinho rates him highly. But even then, with Mourinho's kind of track record, unlikely he was going to put a 20-year-old right back straight into the team, is it? And I think Valencia, really quite dramatically regressed last season, both defensively and attackingly, and Ashley Young just isn't. I'm just really uncomfortable with Ashley Young at right back, and it's a little bit like what the kind of problem Man City had a few years ago, where their fullback positions were just aging so much, and it was so clear that they needed to strengthen
Zabaleta, Clichy.
Yeah, exactly. Can't remember who their other left back was, but
Kolarov.
Yeah, there you go. So we're in a similar predicament to them, but probably worse because we don't have quite as many options. And
you got Fosu Mensah who can come back, right?
Yeah, but I just don't think it's going to happen under Mourinho. I feel like there's been chances for him to come back, i.e. this summer, and it hasn't happened. And yeah, it's just a bit of a shame because now he's part of such a poor Fulham defence that I feel like his confidence is going to be really hit now.
And it seems like Jokanovic isn't the sort of coach that's going to really develop him there for the year, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, there is exactly. And even his position is actually CDM, and that's actually where he wants to play in the long term.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was always tipped as a CDM. Played really well there for the youth side and whatnot. But
and moving forward into your midfield, what are you?
Well, yeah, I think yeah. Actually, on the subject of CDM, I think CDM is also in the long term where United need to invest. I think Matic. Well, he's going to be 31 this year, or is he going to be 32? Not quite sure. 31 this season.
Somewhere in that region, yeah.
And he started showing consistency as well. Obviously, had a great start to the season last season, but his performances have dropped off since then. And I think that's been partly to blame for why our defence has been so leaky. I think he was always kind of guarding what was an otherwise quite vulnerable defence when he first came in. And for whatever reason, his positioning's just a bit off. He just doesn't seem to have the legs that he had before. Not that he was particularly pacey when he came to us, obviously, but he has been more and more exposed. And I think Herrera can do a job at CDM, but he's far more, he's far more adept at just harrying players with someone covering for him in a midfield three.
Herrera's had a massive downturn at United from being Player of the Year 2 years ago.
Kind of tipped to be our future captain and whatnot. Yeah, he had an awful season last season.
To get in the first team.
He was,
Start last night.
He did. Yeah, I think he was good against Juve as well. At least in the second half. But yeah, I think CDM is definitely somewhere where we need to invest.
And what have you made of the acquisition of Fred?
I think Fred's been. I think Fred's just had a bit of time needs a bit of time to adapt.
It's too early to judge, maybe.
Yeah, but I think he's been good. Like he's shown that he's shown his technical ability, and yeah, I think at the start of the season he had a couple of not great games. I think in the first 2 games of the season against Leicester and Brighton, he was, just a little bit kind of
not quite on the pace.
Not quite on the pace. Missing a few clearances.
It's one of those things, isn't it?
And it's just like he looked a little bit foolish in certain moments, which then kind of overshadowed the fact that generally speaking he was fairly good on the ball. His passing was maybe a little bit off, which again leads to criticism, but I don't know. I think Fred was a good signing.
With forward, you paid a lot for him again, but like with forwards, I think like if a forward was playing sometimes through the middle, sometimes on the wing, then we'd give them a little bit of leeway for having been moved around. But similarly, sometimes you look at a guy and he's in central midfield and you say, well, that's his position. But you can play loads of different roles there. And I think Fred has had to play a bunch of different roles so far under Mourinho. And that has a similar sort of destabilising effect. Like there were some games where it felt like his job was to run into the box and be getting on the end of chances. And then in other games where he was cleaning up behind Pogba. And so I feel a little bit for Fred because I think United's still figuring out what they want him to be.
100%. That chopping and changing throughout that side can't be helped. I couldn't name you Mourinho's preferred 11, even now. That midfield, they've changed formation regularly, they changed combinations in midfield, they change at the back. They've got a little bit of consistency now with Lindelof and Smalling, but it's just been so much changing. I think that does affect, how you can build a side, get a run of form going, and also bizarre starts to a game as well, leaving it so late to really get going. Which does suggest that Mourinho is doing something at half time to really turn these games around, but it can't go on forever, leaving it to the final 10-15 minutes. Although I do think that's a slight narrative thing as well, because for years when Fergie's side win in the last minute, it's well done Fergie, he's changed the game with the substitutions. Mourinho makes substitutions now, they win the game late, and lucky Mourinho.
Though to be fair, like with Ferguson, it was also like you couldn't really score against them, and then they would score against you. Whereas with Mourinho, United could have been 2 or 3 goals down in the first half hour against Bournemouth. And yes, he deserves credit for fixing it in the second half, and the players were really good and they genuinely were really dominant in that second half. But the game could have been out of sight in the same way that the Juve match, which we watched last night, this obviously shot on a Thursday, United could have been 2 or 3 goals down before they had the opportunity to come back into it. So yes, you get credit for winning from the position you were in, but you also say, well, you're a little bit lucky that your position wasn't worse.
Yeah, 100%. Finishing off with United, McCubbs, what do you think about your front line? You must be pretty happy with your options if they're not being used effectively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the last thing I'd say. I think so. Obviously, we have CB, RB, CDM that definitely need renewing to some extent. But I think up front, although that's arguably where we're strongest at the moment, or at least that's where we've got strongest performers at the moment. I still think that right side needs someone.
Hard to recruit.
If we were going to get, when we got, I know we've said this loads before, but when Alexis came in January, that's where most of us saw him playing, was on the right. Hasn't worked out like that. Back in January, I wanted, someone like Lucas Moura would have been a really good fit on the right. But obviously he went to Spurs. Then in the summer, thought maybe Malcolm would be a good option. He went to Barca. So I don't know. I don't know who there is.
Summer, if you could get Malcolm, if his game time doesn't improve, then I wouldn't be surprised.
Perhaps. I think he would be a good option.
Who's not starting most of the time.
And Passo, what are you thinking about Arsenal? Topsy-turvy, at least in the games, you're getting a lot of results, but, there's still massive work to be done in that defence, I imagine.
Yeah, well, we definitely need a couple of centre-backs, at least two, I think, and a left-back and probably another midfielder, especially with Ramsey going, and a winger, definitely. There's not a lot of width in the attack, especially with no kind of elite starting left back. Like, there's a reason that Bellerin is constantly so exposed. It's not his fault. It's because he's being asked to get forward, because otherwise we've got no width. And Iwobi and Mkhitaryan, who are our kind of more natural wide men in the attack, are guys who want to come inside and create from the middle zone. So that's a bit troubling. And there is Nicolas Pepe, who's obviously at Lille this season.
Like a rocket,
yeah, he's got 8 goals and 5 assists in 12 games. Now, 5 of those goals were penalties, and he has been overperforming quite a lot. But when you look at his shot numbers, I think he's 4 shots a game, 2.4 in the box, 1.8 chances created. I know these just sound like numbers, but those numbers are generally very good for a forward. And it's really brought about a resurgence for Lille. He's a good
100%.
dribbler, he's very fast, good top end speed, plays off the right, but he's left-footed. So that would be quite an interesting move for Arsenal. I mean, I liked Malcolm for us as well. I thought that would have been an interesting one too.
Going back to Nicolas Pepe quickly, Lille's recovery, because they were awful last year. I think they were a point above Toulouse, who had to play in the relegation playoff. And then this summer brought it, I think Nicolas Pepe was there last year, but they brought in Jonathan Bamba from Saint Etienne. He's playing really well as well.
He's fantastic.
And Lille just look, reborn. Very impressive stuff indeed. But sorry, moving.
Well, they lost Bissouma to Brighton, and it's been replaced. But we'll talk about the guys replacing him shortly. But I think if I were Arsenal, I'd be like, we need centre backs. And where previously I've advocated paying lowish fees for centre backs because they're quite hard to assess. Like taking some punts. And I think we should do that. I think we should maybe buy, a few young centre-backs who look like decent prospects and loan them out. I think that it's also worth Arsenal's while just going out and spending 40 to 50 million on a top centre-back.
Okay.
So for instance, if Pavard is available, I think you go and say, if this deal isn't done, we will offer you obscene wages and we'll give your club more money than they could possibly want. In order to get this guy in, because Arsenal just need, if you put an elite centre-back in this Arsenal defence, they would, I'm not saying they become brilliant overnight, but the improvement would be enormous. Mustafi is dreadful. Holding might one day be good, but at the moment he's a bit of a liability. Socrates has been bad. I mean, Mavropanos has been injured and is probably still too young to be making an impact. So I think it's kind of, basically think of it as the cheap version of Liverpool with Van Dijk. Like, Arsenal know they need a guy in this position to solve a problem. So go out and just spend that money, because the rest of the squad is kind of okay. Like, yes, we're going to need someone to replace Ramsey, but I also think bargains can be had in central midfield. If Ceballos were to leave Real Madrid, you could probably pick a couple of guys up from Italy. Like, I think that there are central midfielders around. But top quality centre backs who can play in Arsenal's team.
What about someone like a Daniele Rugani, still not getting regular minutes?
I don't think they let him go.
Really?
I think after letting Caldara go to Milan as part of the Bonucci deal, I think that he's their only young centre back really. So I think there's no way they let him go. But you could go for an older option. I mean, we've been linked with people like Benatia. That would be an exceptionally short-term fix. But old and good is
Benatia now?
Like 31.
Wow,
but old and good, Benatia is better than old and bad, Socrates Papastathopoulos. So yeah, I don't know. The thing is, we've been linked to so many guys, and then we've seen them go to other clubs and be good. So like Abdou Diallo, we were linked with. Now he's at Dortmund. He looks great. So I think that I would probably.
The whole Dortmund backline looks very good.
So maybe I'd go to source. I'd go to the source and say like, okay, rather than like, I'd pick up one of those guys who's a little bit of a gamble from a smaller club, and then I'd pay a big fee, like a whopping fee, for somebody who looks great. And I'd probably get in a left back as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, because Monreal, what is he now? 31?
32, maybe.
32. So he's only got maybe 2 more years max. And then Kolasinac has a lot of injury problems since he's been there. I still don't really have a solid picture on whether he's the long-term answer.
I like Kolasinac. He seems more of a wing-back to me, though he has played full-back. He's got good defensive numbers. He's got great attacking numbers. Like, he's got everything you want to see. But yes, like,
But erratic.
often injured, pretty foully. Like, his passing game is not... Like, Monreal is such a reliable passer at left-back for Arsenal. Like, technically, he's so good that the drop-off in that to Kolasinac is remarkable. And even though Kolasinac is faster and stronger, Monreal is way better at reading the game. Like, it's this season, only I think 2 clubs have made a greater percentage of their turnovers in the opposition third.
Yeah.
So Arsenal are third in the league in terms of like the percentage of their possession regain that happens in the opposition third.
Fantastic.
We're winning it really high up the pitch. Monreal is a really good part of that usually. But right now, yeah, we've got Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles, and I like Maitland-Niles, but he's not a left back.
And why is Unai Emery playing Xhaka as left back? I know Monreal's out. I know Kolasinac is out.
That is a bit of fun.
Surely, I know he's left-footed, but it just seems so odd. Like,
He's only done that in one game, to
Playing
be fair,
academy
and
player
it was in the Europa. Like,
no. He played them there against Palace, didn't he, for the second half?
No. He played him a little bit against Palace, and he played him a little bit against Leicester. But I mean, I just think it's a recipe for disaster. I don't expect that to be a primary plan for him.
Oh right, no.
Like, so yeah,
I
I
think
don't
there
know.
must be an academy graduate that's got more ability than Xhaka
There
as a
isn't.
left back.
There isn't, honestly. Like, left back is. I think that once we see it was a bad case of Monreal, Kolasinac, and Maitland-Niles all being injured at the same time. But anyway, if I were Arsenal, I'd go out and I'd try and get a top quality left back, a top quality centre back, and a centre back prospect in January. Maybe Milenkovic from Fiorentina would be interesting as well. He's like 21-year-old centre back.
Really well.
He could be your prospect, and then your nailed on one could just be like literally anyone who can head a ball forwards rather than straight up in the air.
And when Ramsey leaves, either in January or next summer, do you want an Aaron Ramsey replacement, or do you want to give more faith to the youth coming through?
I want a central midfielder, but I don't want a Ramsey replacement. I don't want to play anything like Ramsey.
Okay, you don't want anyone who's better as a 10 really than as a central midfielder.
No, he's a liability.
Yeah.
We have one of the best passing 10s in the world at the club in Mesut Ozil. If we need a backup 10, we have Mkhitaryan. Even Iwobi, I think could play there. He's a good creator. I've literally no idea why we would play Ramsey there. Like, he's such a defensive issue. Like, he's a good attacker, but he's not actually a great finisher, despite what people think. He's not fast. He can't dribble. He doesn't do much defensive work. What does he do? So, like, Aaron Ramsey, to me, is a problem player. He's one of those guys who you have to construct a system around. Whereas there are other guys who just fix whatever problem comes up in a team. Like, N'Golo Kante will just fix your midfield. He gives you a functional midfield. Like, Ramsey is the opposite of that. He will break your midfield. So I think flog Ramsey on in January, don't care who to, really don't care, and get in anyone who is a competent box-to-box midfielder. And that's absolutely fine with me.
I mean, you'll be happy with your forward line, I imagine. Delighted.
Well, it's old. It's old. I mean, I kind of.
Lacazette's only 25, isn't he?
I flirtatiously said to McCubbin earlier, I was like, Aubameyang for Martial in January.
Horrible.
What are you saying?
Horrible.
And he said no.
I'd say no as
correctly.
well, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like Man United might say yes.
Yeah.
Because they're those sorts
I
of
do
people.
love Aubameyang, but
Anyway, let's
such a
move on
mess
from
of a
Arsenal.
forward line,
They're a
that's
mess.
let's
They're a
go
disaster.
on to the North London rivals Spurs, because they've had a very strange start to the season. I mean, admittedly, they're notoriously quite slow starters. And this year is actually their best Premier League start to a season. I think that was before the City game, so I don't know whether that counts anymore. Struggled in Europe for huge parts of those games. Although they did play well away at Inter Milan and were quite unlucky to lose that game.
Sure.
Completely outclassed by Barcelona, and got the job done against PSV the other night. But in the Premier League, the winning goals, they haven't really started hitting their straps, as it were.
Yeah.
Their best sort of attacking play hasn't really come out. I think Son Heung-min hasn't played well since he's come back from the Asian Cup at all. I think only Eric Lamela, Eriksen and Kane have scored more than 2 goals.
But Eriksen's just coming back. Ali's just coming back. Kane is starting to look good again. Kane's taken 8 shots, I think, in each of the last 2 games. So, like, there are signs of life there, and like that to me is not the structural problem with that team.
Oh, there's definitely
there's enough attacking talent.
It's set up. I think they will start getting going, and they're in a great position for having not played that well. Which you sort of say the same about Liverpool, to be honest. I don't know how Liverpool are only 2 points off Man City. It's very impressive, but I'd say Hugo Lloris as well probably needs replacing long term. I know he's the captain.
Long term, sure.
But I don't think you know,
You don't think there's greater issues in
win a title
defence
with Hugo Lloris.
rather than Lloris, though, considering Alderweireld and Vertonghen's injury problems, the fact that Davinson Sanchez is still pretty young as well. Like,
I mean, yeah, another thing, his second season hasn't been nearly as impressive.
I think you solve those issues if you solve the midfield. I really do. Like, I think they've got really slow foot. When they play Davis and Trippier, they're so slow. And there's now no cover. Moussa Dembele, his dribbling has dropped off a cliff. His defensive actions are down. Like, he's extremely immobile. Like, when you watch him, he's now slow. Like, he can't pick up the pace anymore like he used to. And replacing that guy is at the heart of Spurs being a functional side.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about it before. I mean, Ndombele would have been perfect for them. Like,
Yeah, he'd be great.
decent defensive numbers, which I imagine would have gone up if he had been playing without a recognised DM next to him. Huge dribbling numbers, also pretty creative. That would have been great, but I think he's going to be too expensive for them
Really?
now. I don't know if they've got like 50, 60 mil to spend on
I know,
Ndombele
with this
in
new
January.
stadium, it's going to be tricky, isn't
And I
it?
also think Leon will say in January, they'll say, nah, there's no
Absolutely
way
not.
you're having him.
Yeah.
Like,
it's so hard to negotiate.
That's the sort of player they need to be going for now.
well, they might. Well, if they need
Not
to get.
quite world class, but could be.
Yeah.
Emerging into that bracket, because they're not gonna you know, shop at the top table. But why don't they go really hard for someone like Memphis Depay or Tango Ndombele? Or even someone like Thorgan Hazard, who I think is really
why do
coming
they
to his
need
own
Hazard
this
or Depay though? Like, their attack is pretty good. like yes, those guys might not necessarily be in form, but like, do you really want to play Thorgan Hazard over Lucas Moura or Son? Do you really want to play? I mean, Memphis Depay would be fantastic to have, but if you're going to spend 60 mil, surely you should spend 60 mil on a problem you have, not a problem you might have.
Yeah, true. I suppose I just want to see more depth in those forward areas, and someone I think Depay could play centrally if he needed to, if Kane wants to rest in the easier Premier League games.
I agree, but I think probably Son can fill in a little bit. I think
Yeah.
even Ali could maybe fill in.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's not the most necessary, you know, the most needed requirement. I do think their midfield needs a bit of work going forward as well.
Well, the guy
I still think Eric Dyer is a better central defender than he is a central midfielder.
The guy I talked about on one of our podcasts was a guy called Ibrahim Songare,
Okay.
who's also at Lille. He's the Basuma replacement. Ivorian, massive guy. He's like 6'3", 6'4", and he looks every inch of it when he's running. Like, just breezes past people. I think he's got 2.3 dribbles a game, something like that, which I think is the second highest for a central midfielder in Europe. You know, it was pretty remarkable. 5.5 tackles and interceptions a game, which is elite, like very elite. And he's also creating a chance per game. So like, he's got good passing, good defending, good dribbling. And to me, that says Moussa Dembele replacement. He also is probably, if they sold Yves Bissouma for about 18 mil, I reckon you could maybe get Songare for less because he's only 20 and he's like relatively unproven. But if Spurs have got to decide, are we going to spend very occasionally on really key pieces and spend a lot of money on them? Or are we going to take a bunch of gambles on prospects and hope some of them pay off? Because in that case, I think they should go out and they should get Songare, and they should maybe find somebody like, there's Gabamin at Mainz, who's also like a really good DM with good passing numbers. Like, just two guys like that, and just say, like, one of these is bound to be good enough at least to tide us over.
Yeah. I think Pochettino's man management has really gone under the radar this year as well. I mean, how he's managed to reintegrate Danny Rose and Toby Alderweireld so effectively back into that side when it all looked said and done a year ago for their hopes at Spurs. I think if Pochettino leaves Spurs, it sort of all falls apart. But anyway, that's Spurs. Let's move on to Chelsea. McCubbin, what have you made of Chelsea this season? It's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, they have been good. They have been really good.
Fun to watch.
And even,
Second highest scorers in the league, ahead of Liverpool.
Yeah, only unbeaten team in Europe now as well, which is pretty amazing. Having said that, I've not watched too many full Chelsea matches, to be fair. It's more been kind of results based. But yeah, things seem to be kind of falling into place for them. Alvaro Morata is scoring
Coming back into
now
form,
as
isn't he?
well. So I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's any like glaring parts of that squad or that part of that starting 11 at least that need like major surgery, and I think that's been the case for like a few seasons now. Like, Chelsea always seem to have quite a consistent starting 11.
Yeah.
There's not like, especially since Kante came in, there's not like a huge amount of kind of gaps that need to be plugged.
I mean, the additions of Jorginho and Kovacic have just made them feel so deep as well.
Yeah, for sure. So they've got so many options there. The only thing maybe, I was even thinking like kind of right winger, but Pedro and Willian like deputise well for each other there.
Yeah, Willian's been great.
Yeah, Pedro's made good impact
And
off the
I
bench.
guess
as well.
who have they got playing at right back this season?
Azpilicueta.
Azpilicueta's been playing there, so yeah. So even kind of the problem with Victor Moses has been kind of plugged there. So
left back's
yeah,
kind of the
actually quite
issue,
difficult.
isn't it? But they just refused not to play Marcos Alonso. So if Marcos Alonso is going to play whatever and they're not going to use Emerson, then why buy anybody else?
Yeah, I think that is his role to get forward.
They could get younger. They're quite old.
They could get
As
younger.
a team.
Maybe they're sent. Maybe yeah. Maybe I mean long term they'll need a replacement for David Luiz, won't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't seem to fancy Christensen for some reason.
Which is strange. He hasn't. I don't think he's played 1 minute this season.
I don't know
Or
what
at
he's
least he
like.
hasn't
yeah,
started
it
a
sounds
game.
like he
which is
wants to
crazy.
leave in January, which is why Joe thinks United could
I
get
don't know
him,
whether
but,
he's
like,
confident enough on the ball is anything. I remember one. I know this is really
He's a
harsh
good
to judge
passer in
off
Germany.
one error, but I remember one tragic error against Barcelona last year, crossing, where he passed it across the edge of the box and they
Sure.
went in and scored. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him play, to be honest, to be able to judge whether he's a better passer. But Rudiger's an exceptional passer. I think David Luiz is perfectly confident as well. And Sarri doesn't seem to make a lot of changes to his 11. He did that at Napoli as well. He pretty much sticks to a similar-ish 11 to 14 players. I think Kepa's actually adapted pretty well to the league. I don't think he's been outstanding, but it's been a
good.
pretty smooth transition.
Yeah, it's been good enough,
And
definitely.
he's very confident on the ball as
No
well.
one's talking about how much he cost anymore, which is a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
Weirdly, Chelsea just have a good squad, don't they?
Yeah.
They're basically fine. Like, if they don't want to use one of their current players, they've got that guy in the squad. So
Yeah, no,
Chelsea arguably might need less work than any of the other sides. Like, I'm not saying they're better than City, but they don't have a glaring error in the squad. Like, they just need to sort of gel and then see where they are next summer, maybe.
Pato, what have you made of the sort of resurgence of Ross Barkley this season? Because I have to admit, before this season, I was like, this guy is pretty, he's not out the races. I don't know what he's doing at Chelsea. But I've been really impressed by him in the games that he's played. I know it's easy when you've got Jorginho and Kante alongside you.
And against weak opposition. Like, so far he's been playing against pretty weak opposition. But yeah, it's been good. I mean, it looks like he's getting some good coaching. It looks like he's got a lot of freedom because of the defensive work behind him.
Did you see that he said this is the first time he's been coached in about 5 years?
Yeah, which I mean is not that surprising. Martinez, Koeman, like all those kind of guys. I mean, I still think it was really stupid of Chelsea to pay 15 million for him when he was injured in January instead of just waiting and getting him on a free in the summer, which they could have done perfectly happily. But yeah, I mean, he's doing well. But the issue with Barkley has always been like consistency and fitness. And we yet to see either of those. So if he continues for the rest of the season and he's a reliable contributor, then yes, I will say that he's a useful member of the squad. However, I still don't think that he's going to be the guy who is really playing the big games for them or making a difference in those games.
I've been surprised by the lack of game time to Fabregas, I have to say, actually.
He's a bit difficult to fit though, isn't
No,
he?
he doesn't really fit in a Sarri system quite
He's not
as well.
defensive enough to play the Jorginho role. He's not got the legs to play the attacking
or
role.
the Kante
Like,
role,
he
exactly.
certainly can't defend and play the Alam role or the
He's
Kante
not really
role.
a 4-3-3 player, really. But yeah, that's Chelsea. So we're generally agreeing that Chelsea are pretty well set,
Yeah.
especially with
Yeah, I
Morata
can't
coming back
think
into
of-
form.
yeah.
I think all these talk of getting Morata out and getting a card in, that's a waste of 100 million, in my view.
Yeah, like if you really don't like Morata, bring back Batshuayi.
Yeah.
Like give him a go. Play
There we go.
Giroud, that's fine. Like I mean, play a false nine. Like there are so many options in that
options.
squad. I think you're absolutely right that the right wing's supposed to go, but the perfect guy would have been Martial if they could have like done some
Perhaps,
sort
yeah.
of like swap with
I saw
Willian.
that Barcelona are going back in for Willian in January, but
Oh,
who knows
really?
whether that's true.
They should let him go. If they're going to pay
gonna
obscene
get
money,
60
let
million,
them pay obscene money.
I
And
don't know
then,
why Barcelona will want it.
I know it's so weird, but then you feel like Chelsea can just go and pick somebody up. Like, do they not back themselves to get like some decent right winger? You know, like Ronnie Lopez or whoever it is, just a decent goal scoring right winger. I feel like it's actually it's harder to find than a left winger, but it's not actually that difficult.
Fair. Right, so we're all in agreement. Chelsea are pretty well set. We move on to Liverpool. Now, not a good result in midweek in the Champions League.
No.
Not a good start to the Champions League campaign, really, especially with that loss against Napoli. Didn't have a shot on target in that entire game. On the other night, on Tuesday night, didn't have one to the 72nd minute. Struggling in Europe, but in the Premier League, getting the job done. I mean, Pato, I know you really weren't impressed with them against Arsenal.
I mean, they're still good. They still could have won the game. Like, I thought Firmino just wasn't there. I didn't see him for the whole game. It was remarkable. Salah was getting a lot of criticism afterwards, but I kind of thought he did his best.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I think the midfield is still, Fabinho does not look ship-shape at the moment. I mean, he doesn't look sharp at all. Milner is still a Superman in the midfield. Keita had the
I've been
back
disappointed
injury.
with
and
Keita, I have to say.
he was great at the beginning of the season, but like it looked after. I feel like a back injury. Half of the difficulty afterwards is that you're running like you're expecting your back to go all the time, and he looked like it. He was like really ginger, like when he was running. So I just don't. And Wijnaldum, I still think is just like he's a nothing player.
I think he started this season really well. I think he's carried that midfield.
I think he's a total nothing player. Like I mean, I guess they could get another centre back. Like Lovren is still not good enough, but Joe Gomez has been great.
Joe Gomez has been, along with Laporte, for me, the standout centre-backs in the Premier League so far.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think Joe Gomez has been superb. Goes so under the radar compared to Van Dijk, but I think he's been immense. Where I'd go is definitely left-back depth. I don't think Moreno should be anywhere near your first-team squad.
Although he hasn't actually been that
true.
bad in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, I would say.
And they've also been so, well, it's not lucky, it's maybe well done Liverpool's academy, but to have Gomez, I know he came from Watford at an earlier age, and sort of Trent qualify at a similar time and go straight into your first team. That's a real blessing, and that doesn't happen very often in the top six.
But you know, like Trent was actually originally a central midfielder.
Yeah.
But kind of went.
And it shows when he's on the ball as well. Yeah. He's so confident.
He's been incredible.
Yeah.
To be honest, they could always play Milner at left back if they needed to, if they had the midfielders, but they don't. Like Milner is genuinely like the indispensable member of this team at the moment. I really do think. Like he was so good last season, and this year he's still been brilliant. Like it can't last forever. And the hope is obviously that Naby Keita gets fit and then starts banging. He's been playing in that weird kind of 10 role earlier in the season, and that's not really where you want it.
It's not his best, is it?
But I don't know. You still look at Liverpool and you think, pick up a backup left back here, pick up another centre back who can rotate with Gomez and Van Dijk there. Like, I don't know if there's necessarily anywhere they need to spend big money apart from. I would probably be thinking about another central midfielder.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I mean,
and maybe some attacking depth.
Could they get another striker in? I know Sturridge has been adequate when he's come on and scored that unbelievable goal against Chelsea, but he missed a really disappointing chance against
and then it's like
Red Star.
Then it's like Shaqiri and then like Origi, I think.
Yeah, Dom Solanke.
Oh, I like Dom Solanke. Dom Solanke's good. Yeah.
But he doesn't get any game time, and then unless they're going to put some more faith in Ryan Brewster as well, maybe they need to look at a striker.
And those guys are all centre forwards too. Yeah. Like Firmino, Sturridge, Solanke are all legit centre forwards. Like your wide depth is Shaqiri and maybe Origi, who's also technically a centre forward.
Lallana could play on the left as well.
I mean,
he hasn't looked great.
It's a significant drop off in legs to go from Mane and Salah to Lallana and somebody else.
But I think it's so difficult though to. How do you persuade like a half decent left winger or a right winger to come in and be like, okay, do you want to
come off the bench?
Come to Liverpool and try and get in the team ahead of Mane and Salah, who are like arguably the two most dominant wide men in the league. Yeah. Like I don't know. I just don't see how you persuade a player.
They'll try and use the argument you'll work under one of the best managers, and the manager in the world of football who probably seems to be getting the most improvement out of his players, alongside Guardiola in world football, and maybe Diego Simeone. I feel like players under Diego Simeone really improve quickly, and try and sell them on the Liverpool dream. But
it depends who you are. If that's your only position, I get it. But if you're someone like Fekir, I still think Fekir was weird. But somebody like that, he might say, okay, well, I'm going to be the most attacking of a midfield three, and I'm going to have Fabinho and Keita behind me. In that sense, you can think, okay, right, well, I can make this position my own, and then I can also deputise in that position. Whereas if you're a genuine left winger or right winger, then yeah, I'd be like, what am I doing here? I'm never going to play, and yes, I'll get cup games and stuff, but is that what I want to be doing? No. Don't know.
And we move on to the champions, the leaders again at the moment by 2 points, who have played some scintillating football this season. Man City.
This is easy, right? We all know where we're going.
I think so too. I mean, the probably less talked about position I think they probably need is a backup goalkeeper. Claudio Bravo's still there, number 2, and then they've got Muric as their number 3.
It's not terrible.
Bravo played all right in the cup games last year. I think he played particularly well on penalty shootouts. I seem to remember he was unbelievable in getting to the final. But yeah, it's got to be added depth in midfield and cover for Fernandinho / a long-term replacement.
Yeah.
And Pato, where would you be looking to shop for that long-term replacement?
I mean, a lot of people talking about Ruben Neves, right? But all the guys that people are talking about are Jorginho types because they were interested in Jorginho. But he's very immobile, and all those guys are quite immobile as well.
Jorginho or Fernandinho?
Jorginho, Ruben Neves, Julian Weigl, like a lot of the players of that type. I mean, the dream for them, I guess, would be somebody a bit more mobile who had big defensive actions and is a good passer and mover, and someone like Rabiot, who's available on a free at the end of the season. Though on the other hand, they're also interested in Fred, who's kind of the opposite of that. Like Fred's much more like Fernandinho, like just super mobile, like big defensive actions, like good passer as well, more of a dribbler. Like, so it really depends whether they want a guy who's going to sit and spray balls, or whether they want a guy who's going to be like herring around all over the place and moving the ball into the final third. It seems like they want a passing type. So yeah, I'd probably look at Rabiot and I'd probably look at Ruben Neves.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah. I think I'd probably agree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe
not
Lucas
really sure.
Toussaint throw in the mix there as well.
Leon.
Getting 4.4 tackles and interceptions a game, solid passer, very young, could be moulded into, I mean, maybe not an instant fit into that midfield, but definitely seems like he's got the talent to become a really, really world-class talent. And then
Yeah, that midfield's great.
their midfield is just exceptionally good, and how they've converted De Bruyne and David Silva into these just most incredible playmakers. It's difficult to really see any major faults, and then their front line is just going to be, if they keep them together, it's going to be unbelievable for 10 years. Gabby Jesus, before last night's game against Shakhtar, where he scored a hat-trick, had only got 1 goal this season, so that was a slight drop-off in form, but looked back to his sort of best last night, although 2 of them were penalties. So I don't think there's any long-term problems there.
I think maybe back up at left back, maybe. I mean, I know Delph does deputise well there,
Zinchenko,
but obviously,
And Delph could fill in the midfield as
Zinchenko,
well.
to be fair as well. Maybe it's not such a problem position, but I just think Mendy is just slightly unreliable at the moment. I mean, his fitness as well.
He's erratic.
What about Guerrero? Like, if Guerrero had better fitness, he'd be a great signing for them, because he was amazing in a box-to-box midfield role and can cover left back and can cover left wing. Like, he'd be quite interesting, but he's always injured as well, I suppose.
And then Danilo is a perfectly capable backup right back. I don't think there's any issues there.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then their centre backs are they're so incredible. Company, Otamendi, Stones, Laporte. I mean, that's just mind blowing. Probably the best 4 in Europe, I would have thought.
Big claim.
So
there,
no major issues for Man City. But yeah, that's our rundown of what the top 6 need. And we're all sort of in agreement that most of the work needs to be done at Spurs, Arsenal and Man United. But what do you guys think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Right, we move on to quickfire questions now, and the first one comes from @MasterContender, and he says, "Is there a team?"
Is that what you've tattooed on your ass?
Yes, Master Contender. No, I have Dragon Master.
The Dragon Master.
I have Dragon Master. It's just the initials, actually.
DM. Slide into
Dragon
Doogie's
Master.
DMs.
Yeah. I was thinking of quite lamely adding a little fish next to it, and I could say Carpe Diem next to it as well. But
Hey,
there
that's
we
terrible.
go. Latin jokes. Anyway, from Master Contender, he says, "Is there a team you particularly hate outside of your natural rivals, and why?"
Your natural rivals. The animal kingdom.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I'm on the Serengeti right now.
I feel like you don't hate anyone, McCubs.
Yeah, you're a nice man.
You're quite an even-keeled man.
It's because my hatred is kind of stored low in the depths of my soul.
That sounds very serious.
What, is it aimed at yourself? Like, I don't understand.
No, I think I don't particularly hate. I don't know. Actually, no, I do hate old clubs. I usually just, being a United fan, having been kind of so spoiled growing up, I think it was just like natural just to hate anyone who was kind of near you in the table.
So did you go
So
through
like
a period of
I hated Arsenal in the King Vieira days. Obviously, that rivalry was something in itself anyway. But like as soon as Arsenal started dropping to 4th place every year, I kind of didn't really hate them so much anymore. It's just kind of that's kind of standard, isn't it? I always hate Liverpool more when they're nearer the top of the table, and the same with Man City. Although, City always used to beat us anyway, so I always hate them. But I don't know, the only team I can really think of that really stand out to me, probably PSG.
Whoa.
I don't know, just always had a dislike for them. And I think it's, I don't know what, not always, obviously it's been since the money came in, and it's, I don't know what it is. There's just something a little bit, I don't know, I just found something just a little bit obnoxious about the way that they've conducted themselves over the years.
I get that.
The fact that there's just like, they've basically made it impossible for anyone to properly challenge them long term in Ligue 1. And just, I don't know, just the fact that they managed to attract players to go there, despite those players, and those players just accepting that they're going to be playing, I don't know, just like playing less competitive football. I don't know what it is. I don't know when like Angel Di Maria went there from United, and I can understand why he left United, for multiple reasons. But like, this was a guy who was pretty much at the peak of his powers and just like, I don't know, probably could have gone to a better
Someone
club
like
in
Draxler
Europe.
as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Draxler's kind of wasted his
so
early
frustrating.
career there.
As a United fan, I'm always interested. Do you hate Liverpool or City more? Or probably...
It's a
Maybe
difficult.
neither.
I think it depends. Yeah, I mean, I think I probably hate City more actually. Like, I think if I was actually Mancunian, I would hate Liverpool more, but I'm not. So, yeah.
Fair.
I think I do. I think I do hate City more.
You're City man. Fair enough. Pado, what about you? You got a bit of hate for Spurs in there?
I've never hated Spurs. I don't really get the Spurs thing. Like, to me, it was always United. I always hated United. I still hate United. I think they're reprehensible.
Fair.
Like, I just hate them. I've always hated Chelsea as well. Like, Chelsea are genuinely a dreadful
Chelsea
club,
awful.
peopled with awful people and terrible fans.
At
But
Zagella.
But in the last few years, like Conte, Sarri, like the way they play, certainly under Conte, I stopped hating them quite as much. I didn't mind them. And if it was a choice between Chelsea and United winning the league, I think I'd choose Chelsea. But I've got no beef with Spurs. Like, out of the top six, like, I hate Man City and Spurs the least.
But is
Like,
that also
definitely.
because Spurs were never really a direct rival to Arsenal during the glory years?
They
It
are
was just
now.
like,
They
Yeah,
beat
for sure.
the shit out of us all the time. Like, but I mean, yeah, I think so. But again, like I'm not from North London, and yeah, they were just not an issue in those days. Like, everyone was like, oh, it's a huge. I think the idea of the derby is kind of outdated because it pretends football is not a global game. Like, but I've always despised Barcelona. I hate them. I can watch them and appreciate them and stuff, but I think they're a really obnoxious club. I think their fans are.
I'd slightly agree with that.
And I'd
as
say
well.
that in
Would be
Xavi
more
and
of a Real
Iniesta,
man.
I'd say they have two of the biggest in football history.
Wow.
Like, Xavi and
Iniesta,
Iniesta are so smug. Like, you know, when they used to talk all the time about like Barca DNA and how they could basically take any player they wanted. They do this all the time, like tapping up players essentially, and they always acted like they were the club that other clubs aspired to be, and actually, they weren't. Like until Guardiola came along, they'd been like off and on for a while. They won the
kind of
Champions
irrelevant.
League in 2006, but before that, they'd been dog since
They're a
Cruyff
crisis
left.
club,
yeah,
Like, they were-
perennially.
yeah, exactly. They were all over the place, and I was always just like, oh, piss off. Like, I just.
There is a certain arrogance.
I actually find them quite boring to watch as well. Like, Man City are getting to that level now where they're so good that I'm just like, it's just boring. Like, you're just winning 6-0. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it was a great goal, but it is just like, it's not that impressive to me. It's like playing FIFA on amateur mode. So like, and also then there are clubs that just remind me of like Sunday afternoons when I was about 8. Blackburn, Villa,
Bolton.
in fact any Birmingham club, all depressing. Bolton, Wigan, all Northern.
Yeah. He doesn't have any issues though, North.
Nothing in that. All Northern clubs, but like,
Glad to hear you didn't mention Sunderland. in
just
that.
all. I mean, Sunderland are demoralising as well. But at least when you went to Sunderland, when we played in Sunderland Stadium, I was like, it was like a real stadium built for football.
Yeah, it's massive.
You know, that had seats in it and a pitch. Whereas when we went to play Wigan, it was always just like we were playing in an allotment,
Yeah, in
like
a
surrounded by
rugby
guys in
league
flat
stadium,
caps who were just like, "Oh, is the war over?" Like, it was
Drinking their Bovril, yeah.
I didn't like it, and also Scottish football, all Scottish football. I'd say I've watched a cumulative maybe 20 minutes of Scottish football in my life, and I hated every minute of it. It was awful.
All 20.
Like, it was awful.
Oh, there's something about an old firm. I love the venom in it.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Right.
Well,
As a Scot,
So I don't mind Scottish football. I don't really watch it a lot. I used to go to St Johnstone when it was free, but as soon as it wasn't, I didn't think it was worth it.
that.
And growing up, I was supposed to hate Newcastle, but I never really did. I remember being about 8, and Sunderland were yo-yoing at the time between the Premier League, and I tended to lose interest when we were in the Championship aged 8. And my mate Francis was like, "Oh, who do you support now?" I was like, "Probably Newcastle." And then Obafemi
Blasphemy.
Martins came along and did his somersault, so I loved it. And I've almost got sympathy for Newcastle now. I can't think of a worse run club in English football except for maybe Blackburn and
Sunderland.
Coventry. Nope, new owners at Sunderland. We're doing
Yeah,
great.
great.
We'll be
Yeah.
back.
League
But yeah,
One.
moving on from Sunderland, because otherwise we'll see our watch time massively decline. You've probably all gone already. Anyway, Kieran Hughes, 19, he's asked, what are your thoughts on the new European Super League potentially being introduced?
Oh God.
I really don't like this at all. I think it's ridiculous how 11 teams could be permanently in it for 20 years. A lot can change in
crazy.
20 years. 20 years ago, Chelsea were were pretty average. 20 years ago, Man City were in the 3rd tier. It's mental to have your place confirmed for 20 years.
Are there 11 particular clubs which have been drafted in? So
Yeah.
what are those clubs?
AC Milan is in it.
Arsenal's in it.
Arsenal's in it. So I
It's,
think
it's the historically dominant clubs.
It's AC Milan, Juventus, Barcelona, Real Madrid,
Man
Bayern,
United.
Dortmund are coming in as a temporary.
Okay.
Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, and I'm missing one. I think Liverpool. So it's 5 English teams minus Spurs.
So it's basically England,
Probably,
Italy,
they probably
and
put PSG in as well.
yeah.
Oh,
And
PSG I think are in as well. And then Roma, Marseille, and someone else are the temporary members. It's a ridiculous idea.
So it's literally just like historic clubs, basically. It's. I mean, it seems to make no sense, and like, well, I mean, we've talked about this before, but like, it feels like all those clubs are going to go from winning like 30 of their league games a season to winning about half of their league games in a season, and everyone will be livid.
Yeah.
Think how Real Madrid get the hankies out when they're like 2-1 up. Like they're livid. Like, so imagine what it will be like if they're losing genuinely half. They're going away and getting pumped at the Allianz like every other week. They will go mental.
What does it mean for the Champions League?
Arsenal will lose every game.
That's the thing. It would completely change the whole landscape of European football completely, like, and permanently, wouldn't it? Because I mean, they're now saying that if it was to happen, they would, like, the players who play in the European Super League wouldn't be able to play international matches, so they wouldn't be able to play for their countries. They wouldn't be able to contest World Cups or European Championships, and then it would obviously take out these big teams from their leagues. And I don't know what the view would be for lesser clubs. I know obviously in the UK hasn't been hit by it quite so much, mainly because there are just 5 or 6 fairly big clubs in the Premier League. But obviously financial fair play has had a big part to play in turning the Bundesliga and Serie A in particular into leagues which have been just, dominated by one club for a while. So I don't know whether this is just like the second kind of part of that, whereby the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're a fan of, I'm trying to think, kind of middling, a Fiorentina, say, or something, maybe you'd actually welcome this, because they'd be like, oh, actually, now there's actually like a bit more competitiveness. I don't know.
What do you think about the idea of putting it as a level on top of the European pyramid? So all the leagues continue as they are, but you put a bunch of teams in it to start with. And then, like, if you get relegated from the European Super League, you go back into your domestic league, and the winner of that league goes in. So basically, it would take, like, say, PSG out of Ligue 1. They're in the European Super League. If they get relegated from the Super League, then whoever won Ligue 1 that year goes into the Super League, and it means that you could still win your domestic title. There'd still be value to winning your domestic title.
Although that particular instance that you just wouldn't happen that often, because PSG would have to come bottom of the Super League.
Yeah, well, it depends how many. If you get
And
three,
someone else would
say
have
you
to
get
win
3
Ligue 1.
relegated every season,
If you get 3,
out of like 12, then like that would be a good way of just keeping constant turnover.
That's a better idea.
Like because I think that would be a way that people would have something to aspire to, and also teams like Fiorentina, Lazio, like the slightly less fashionable clubs would have an opportunity to win a league title. Obviously, there'd be the argument that you didn't really win it because the best team in your country wasn't even in it. But I don't know. Maybe you'd get more people It's like the League Cup. Like, people would still be pleased that their club got their hands on some trophies, and it would give them an opportunity to get into it and make it a bit less of a closed shop.
Yeah, I can see that. But it would be frustrating with a club like Chelsea, for example, which had such yo-yo years over the last few years. They get into the Super League, and then they have a Mourinho meltdown, for example. And then suddenly
that'd be amazing.
They didn't deserve to be there in the. And it's just a mess.
That'd be amazing if they just lost every game. For
it
like
completely
4 years.
destroys the Champions League. And speaking as any football fan would say, I think the Champions League is probably the pinnacle of world football. Even more exciting than the World Cup. I think the glamour ties of the Champions League is what we all love. Love the game for, and it completely demeans that. So I think it's arrogant and greedy, and I don't like it at all. Anyway, moving on to the last one, comes from @Sacco59. And he or she says, what do you think about the rumours of Arsene Wenger joining AC Milan? Is it a good appointment?
I don't think it's happening.
Sorry?
Don't think it's happening.
Well, he said it was fake news.
Yeah, he said it was fake. If you want to hear more on this topic, then check out this week's episode of the podcast where Chris Hamill and I do a deeper dive on it. I quite like it.
Wenger to AC?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Yeah. Like, I think they've got good young players, and they shoot a lot, but they shoot a lot from range. like they have the third most shots in Serie A, but they're only rated like the sixth best by expected goals. So they're creating a lot of shots, but not good quality shots. What does Wenger specialise in? Creating good quality shots. His team in the Premier League over the last 4 seasons averaged about 34% of their shots from outside the box compared to 47% for Milan. Arsenal had the lowest percentage of shots from outside the box of any Premier League team in 2 of the last 3 seasons. So they're just really good at getting into the final third, and I think that Wenger would actually be great at that. Do I think he's a long-term manager for them? No. Do I think that he'd increase the value of their portfolio of youngsters? Yes. And that's probably something they need to do in order to be a sustainable business. So I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst, but when you look at the guys who are unemployed right now, Ralph Hasenhüttl is unemployed. Vincenzo Montella, who was there previously, is unemployed. Lopetegui is unemployed. Zidane is unemployed. Jardim is unemployed. Jardim would be better.
It was interesting seeing Danny Carvajal say that Lopetegui was his best ever coach that he's worked on.
Really? I'm not surprised. He hasn't worked under great coaches, has he?
True.
Ancelotti's probably his best coach.
Yeah, I was just quite surprised by the statement. But McCubbs, have you got anything to add on Arsene Wenger? Would you love to see Arsene with his great knitwear going down to Milan?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
It'd be fun, wouldn't it?
yeah, it'd be fun. Right, moving on to
I think Pat, you probably had the best analysis of that, to be honest.
Oh, cheers, McCubbs. Appreciate that.
But, yeah.
Right.
I hope he goes to Man United.
Yeah, that'd be a
It would
turnaround.
never happen. Even United aren't that mental.
Bring Vieira along as his assistant because it's not going well at Nice, is it? Moving on to a personal question. I think we're just going to have time for one.
Yeah.
And Tom Jack, series of numbers, asked, who is the messiest person in the football daily workplace? McCubbin, you could be in the running for this, so I'm actually going to let Pato start because you.
Oh no, I've talked a lot. Go on, McCubbs.
I'd say I'm up there, although I must admit, people do plonk my desk on a daily basis.
Do you know the culprits?
Just everyone. I don't
Everyone.
So for some reason, the card reader now is just like at home on my desk, even though I never use it.
Snacks as well are deposited there.
Snacks are often there.
that's
I
not-
sit next to Zach, which means that a lot of his stuff then goes over there. I realised that I had someone's notebook there for months, and I don't even know whose writing's in it. It's one of Joe or Chris.
I feel like this is a counselling session.
Definitely,
yeah, a little bit.
I think it's Chris. I think
Yeah,
Chris has
maybe
got
Chris.
a shout for being messiest as well.
I think also as well, like Joe, maybe not messiest, but I was sitting next to Joe one day, and he had it was like a bowl of porridge with like a banana in it, and I think it was sat on his desk. Like, I mean, the porridge had been eaten, but you know what? A bowl of porridge happens after a bowl of
no.
porridge.
Yeah.
You know, after
It
it's
turns into like concrete.
Yeah, I think that was there for about 3 or 4 days. So that wasn't great. But yeah,
Jesus.
and Zach's pretty messy from what I understand as well. At home as well.
There's
as
like
in the
there's a
workplace.
fast food end of the office as well. George, James, and Sam
Yeah.
Obaseki eating just Nando's and KFC
Yeah, it
relentlessly.
smells of just like stale takeaway food
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Pat,
What are
is
your
there
shouts?
anything you want to get off your chest in terms of messiest?
No, I'm good. I mean, like Hamill makes his desk look tidier by depositing his stuff all over the office. So
He does have that box as well, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
he has
That
a
infamous
massive box of nonsense, and then like he has
Mainly
like books
hairspray.
about advertising that are just like on the shelf, nowhere near where he sits, and then like hair products that are just secreted around the room.
Inspirational autobiographies and
Like, yes, there's just weird stuff like that's not technically his responsibility because he's hidden it.
Yeah. Moves it around.
But yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. The workplace. That's pretty horrific, though. Tomlinson.
Yeah. I
Cretin.
don't know whether it's a common occurrence, but
Yeah.
that was.
But all in all,
Something
no interventions needed. I think we're all pretty tidy. It's a happy place to be, the FC workspace.
Yeah.
Right,
Except for
Jesus.
breakfast.
What are you talking about? Calm down.
And let's move straight into the end board.
Yeah.
Anything you want to push to, McCubbin? FDFC game?
FDFC game was out last Sunday on FDFC. No, it wasn't. It was on this channel actually. But go over to FDFC to watch our other great content. I believe a bucket list may be going out this weekend. Non-league vlogs is coming up as well. Our second of the season. We rip into AFC Wimbledon, so that's fun. And yes, Stat Wars the League over on EFD. Exciting as always. I believe this weekend Zach versus Kieran.
Indeed.
So relegation playoff basically.
And
It was a good game.
And yeah, you guys faced each other
did,
like
Thursday.
big heavyweight.
On
Yeah.
Thursday, so go back and watch
That's
that.
pretty exciting. Also, the podcast should
Yes.
drop. So obviously the Milan, if you want a bit more depth on that. Plus the Football Social on this afternoon covering the Manchester derby. So make sure you tune in over
Massive.
right here on Football Daily.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.